Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Speculators Podcast. Now, listen, we all know that as traders, we are mental athletes. And it's interesting that we can sit down at the screens to trade. And maybe from the outside, it looks like we're just sitting there doing nothing. But when we stand up and the session is over, we're mentally just fried, unable to put together sentences, a little dead on the inside. It's an interesting thing that can happen in our trading. And in this episode, we're going to be hearing from some of our past guests around mental energy, discipline, performance, wildly important topics. I hope you get a lot out of this episode. I hope you pay close attention. Let's jump in. Trading has a very specific way of just taking your energy from you, your mental energy, your mental capacity. What are your thoughts and what do you do to protect that? Or how do you think about your mental energy when you're trading?
I love this question because often what you see a lot of educators talking about is they lacked discipline. And there's this real idea that you either have discipline or you don't. That's rubbish. I think we all have what I call a self-discipline tank, effectively, and you have to think of it just like a fuel tank. After a restful vacation, you come in, you're hungry, you're excited, your energy levels are high, you're mentally focused, and you're ready. Okay, now the reality is, as you're adding different stresses to the environment, whether that's trading, whether that's your family time and kids, whether that's an argument with your wife, whether that's maybe a stressful down day, all of these things start to pull from that tank, and you start to drain that tank. And the reality is you're not ill-disciplined. What you are is you're a human being. You've got a degree of self-discipline. And once your tank hits zero, guess what? You and everyone else who hits zero in the tank is going to make a mistake. You are going to have this sort of ill-disciplined moment, and you're going to do something stupid. Okay, now, to come back to your question, I think the first thing to say is that it's okay to be ill-disciplined. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, I'm ill-disciplined all the time, which is why I've got two coaches. Okay, I've got a triathlon coach and I've got a swimming coach, and their jobs are very specific. Keep me disciplined, keep me accountable, keep me doing what I tell you is best for me to do. Because when I start to lose focus, when I start to run out of energy, that's when I'm going to draw upon you the most. That's when I need you just help me over that edge. Just keep me going for long enough. Don't make any mistakes, and get going again. So I think coming to the question with regards to how do I do it? Well, I am a triathlete, so I do Ironman triathlon. And that not only keeps me disciplined, it keeps me learning. Okay, so triathlon is very similar to trading. It's not something you just do on day one and you're a triathlete. It's something you do over years. You build endurance, you build an understanding of your sport. You deal with demons. Okay, I've got an Ironman race coming up now in 4 weeks, and I'm going to have to deal with some demons on the run, and that's because I've undertrained. I'm not quite ready for it yet, but I'm prepared for that. It's kind of like trading. Sometimes you have to play the cards, and I'm going to have to rock up on race day, and it's going to be a marathon run in front of me, it's going to be hard to deal with. But in one sense, I'm excited about that. But yeah, triathlon works for me. It helps me deal with things. It helps me particularly stay out of trouble. It helps me sort of compartmentalize my thoughts. But yeah, I think I know there's a couple of triathletes in the trading world, and it's a fantastic sport if you are looking for something that really complements trading in many ways.
Yeah, in my own personal just kind of evolution, this has been something that has been very focal for me over the last maybe even over the last year and a half, of just getting to this place of realizing that the market is just I'm letting the market take way too much of my energy, and it's just not worth it to be at the end of the day and be frustrated, or to just have no energy to do other things. And I like the way you said it about this tank, and it's a very helpful way to look at it. I look at it a similar way of just, I only get so much of this. And Ray Dalio says, don't confuse things for the way they are, for the way that you wish they were. And the reality is that when this is gone, I'm done. And it's so important to protect that. And I don't think there's a one thing you need to do, but figuring that out, making that a part of your mental something, and working at it is so important.
I think one of your previous guests spoke about working 15 hours a day, and I think it was Jason Shapiro. And full respect, I mean, he's had an incredible career. And the reality is that 15 hours a day, you're going to burn out, and you're going to run that tank down a lot quicker than most. But I think where Jason, and I kind of would have loved to have asked him that question during the interview, is you know, what works for me is that when I hit zero, I'm aware of it. Okay, so I'm very aware that I'm sluggish. I'm not quite there. Now I've got a number of systems that'll protect me. In other words, if I'm going to make bad decisions, it's fine. My application is going to manage risk in such a way that the worst case scenario is I'm going to hit a stop out there. I'm not going to blow a hole in my account or anything like that. But I think I've been doing this long enough to know that when I reach that point, not only am I not going to trade, I'm going to be away for a day or two or three, because I'm so self-aware that if I do come, it doesn't matter, even if I'm got the best ideas on, even if I have the best intentions and all the help in the world, the reality is I'm going to make a mistake. And trading, unfortunately, is one of the few jobs that it takes so much more when you make small mistakes. It really takes a lot from you. So what I found is if I'm running low, I just don't trade. I need the day or two to kind of come back, get that little bit of hunger. So yeah, I think everyone's got to find what they're doing. Question I would love to have asked Jason is, I would like to say to him, when you do hit that zero, because the reality is you can't work 15 hours a day every day. What is it that how do you back off? How do you know that you're at that point? And I mean, someone with his career, no doubt that would have been a really cool question to have him answer. So yeah.
You're making me feel like a bad interviewer here with good questions that weren't asked.
I had a tremendous capacity to experience pain and suffering 40 years ago, 35 years ago, trading. I used to, I can't believe it's doing this. And then I'd feel bad. And I'd feel bad for days afterwards. Al, you're such a fool. Why did you do that? You've done that same stupid thing 10 times. Now I don't care. Okay. And, not caring is one of the most important qualities a trader can have. Okay. You don't care. You don't look back at your mistakes. And I can't even, I know I suffered a lot. I'd be incredibly tense and upset for days after doing something really stupid. And now I know that I did it, but I no longer have those feelings. And it's because I'm at the point of my career where I don't care, right? I never care. I don't care if I lose. I don't care if I win. I don't care if I miss a trade. I don't care. And, so, I come in without any emotion. I just look at what the market is doing and I try to find a pattern and then think about some way, can I structure a trade that is there a profitable strategy here? Is there a way I can buy or sell and manage? And if I do that exact same thing 10 times, am I going to end up with a profit?
You talked a moment about, and I think this is maybe one of the biggest sticking points in trading, is just, I like to think about it like I got this inner goblin inside of me that just wants to rear up and just do crazy stuff. And maybe a big part of my day is just trying to keep him under wraps all day long. When it comes to whether or not I should be working out, what should I eat? He wants to have pizza and ice cream. I know I need to eat other stuff, and it's kind of like this divide. And when I'd be interested, when you're trading, I imagine you have that same type of thing where you have these impulses that maybe are lessened, but they're still there. Maybe it's, you feel the need to do something when there's nothing to do, or, you feel those impulses and you stop yourself. Do you have a dialogue or some thoughts that you run through in those moments? And where I'm going with this is I've thought a lot about this, and I've realized that you can't just stop something. Like if you're mad, you can't just stop being mad. If you're sad, you can't just stop being sad. You've got to be able to have some willpower and to transmute that thought to something else. Like take that thought off of being mad and don't just stop, but do something, think about something else.
Yes and no.
What's that?
I said yes and no.
Okay. So for me, a lot of times if I'm, for instance, I feel the need to kind of do something and start over trading, I'll stop myself and I'll replace it with that thought of, what is my trade idea? And if I don't have a trade idea, part of my framework, there's nothing else for me to do if I can't answer that question.
Yep.
Or a lot of times I want to micromanage a trade, and this thought of maybe I win, maybe I don't. And just I found that to be so powerful, of kind of like releasing this energy of, I want to do something that I know I shouldn't do. And if I can just think, instead of getting out of this trade, if I can just think about, maybe I'll win this trade, maybe I won't, it just kind of like breaks it and sets me on a different path.
Absolutely.
Anyway, you have any thoughts about that topic, or do you have some like go-to phrases that you repeat in your head while you're training to keep you in track?
We could talk all day about this, and
Mm.
it's at the heart of emotional, mental performance, right? Like trading is emotional because it deals with money, failure to very high levels that kind of attack us very easily, right? And trading is also, let's call it 100% mental, because we don't really, I'm a firm believer in like getting proficient with your platform and being able to use hotkeys and things like that to be quick, but it's not like it's a bunch of like finger dexterity required to be a good trader, right? So it's all mental. There's so many things to talk about here. Number one, I'll start with, we all start at what I refer to as natural human traders. Okay. The things you were just describing are not unique to you, right? You're not like some broken individual that has like problems, right? We all deal with these things. So we're all, it's part of the understanding of this. And everything is about like, let's build up a really strong like foundation of like mental understanding. Okay. So one is, we approach this game from a flawed place. We are not wired to do this well. Okay. So let's just admit that and sit back and relax for a second. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is a big thing to lean on, is that markets are random. That's right. You're hearing it from me, somebody who makes their living trading markets. They're random. Crude oil today was a coin flip, whether it could have just absolutely tanked and gone to my major target, or whether it absolutely reversed. I suppose at the maybe the same time where equities, started to sell off. I don't know what happened. I don't keep up with news. Anyways, whether one of those two things happened or something in between, it's random. I have no idea. All I know is that the things that I can control, all I know is that if we are holding from a bearish line in the sand and I get my shorter term tactical opportunities to enter and put that risk on, it's my job to do so, right? So a lot of people, for a third thing, so we're natural human traders, right? We're not good at this naturally. Markets have an inherent degree of randomness that we will never, ever get around. And a lot of what I'm talking about there is drawn from a lot of like Mark Douglas type teachings. And then like a lot of people get into trading because they think ultimate freedom, flexibility, blah, blah, blah. And in reality, like you've got to work harder than you ever worked anything else in your life. You've got to commit more time. And like my Tuesday that I described to you, it used to look like 16 hours in front of the screens. I kid you not, right? I was grinding.
I try and do something. So I have kids. I try and do something with my kids. I try and shut off for at least an hour or 2 hour period every night, because if I'm not present there, I find it more difficult the next day. So I really try and like, whether it's 6 to 8 or 5 to 7 or whatever it winds up being, I try and find a 2 hour period where it's just, I'm present there. I get to be with my family. I find that to be very energizing for me. We don't have to be going and doing anything. It could just be hanging at home. But that's something that really recharges my batteries. And I think with any trader on our desk, you'll see there's some routine that they have that's really important to them. Some traders love to travel. Other traders love going to the gym after hours. Other traders love going to dinner. For me, it's spending a couple hours at home with my family. So.
Yeah, this is a really interesting topic, because I think that it's very important in this space, potentially especially where this is such a performance type endeavor, having that process of recharging. And it might at some level feel like, oh, I need to recharge, so I need to like sit down and maybe watch some TV or sit down and have a drink, or some of the things that intuitively might sound like that's helping you recharge are usually not actually what helps you recharge that part of you that's going to be performance. It's usually something active, or something you can get some inspiration from, something like this. But that idea of actively recharging, it's a very interesting topic.
Dr. Steenberger talks about it a lot. Lance talks about it a lot as well. And you'll just see more practice of it on the desk. And it's weird because it's different for everybody. I mean, there's a trader who would, on our desk, I swear, at 4:15 or whenever, if there wasn't anything going on after hours, 4:15, he would take a nap from like 4:15 to 5:15. And that was his active recharging, right? That's probably the most passive version of that I've seen. But literally, we have a room in here, and he would go in there for an hour and then come out, and he would be so refreshed and so like ready for the rest of the day. It was kind of always a joke because you'd see him walking off the desk at 4:50, and you knew exactly where he was going. It wasn't like a surprise at all. But Dr. Steenbarger has been instrumental in that. He says a lot that, and really the mindset that I've adopted is you make trading fit your life, not your life fit your trading. So, you know, you really want to make sure that you're getting those recharge moments as much as possible.
Yeah, trading could have a unique way of really taking everything that you give it. It could take all your money, it could take your energy, it could take your everything.
I mean,
If
it's
you're not
tough.
careful.
Yeah, it's a tough balance because we all run really hot. We tend to be very, very competitive, and you know, that is something that we have to work with developing traders on a lot, especially because, you know, you'll see traders come in at 5 o'clock in the morning, they stay till 8 o'clock at night every year, their first year. You know, it's because we're really passionate about trading, and passion is kind of a funny word because you can be really passionate about something but not have actually any edge. So it's that combination of really grounding yourself in edge first, but if you're working with edge towards something, that passion really does have a giant payoff. But we're all in this game, at least on our desk. We want every trader that walks through the door to be here for 10 years. And we know if they can be here for 10 years, if they can sit in their seat for 10 years, they're going to do quite well. And that's historically what we've seen. And so a big part of everything that we do is making sure that every moment that you're working is grounded in edge, and every moment that you're not working is grounded in that kind of, you know, fulfilling type outside of work activities.
You know, something about trading, and this has been, today would be a perfect example of the market behaving in a way, as, you know, doing something outside the realm of what I thought was possible, and definitely uncentering my chi while I was trading today, especially for that drop. And something I've had to actively work with is just not letting trading absolutely ruin my day, because it will. You can trade, this market will take everything from you, your money, it'll take your health, it'll take your mental processing power, it'll take everything you give it, literally. And I've definitely been in, I would even say, like, bad feedback loops of coming in, trying to be focused, the market kicks my butt, takes all my mental bandwidth, I can't even focus on anything, and it just kind of ruins my whole day, makes me kind of a crappy person. I, you know, have a wasted rest of the day, and then sometimes that will repeat for, you know, long periods of time if you're not careful. Roundabout way of asking a question, very long question, but when it comes to just not giving the market too much in terms of our money or our mental energy, or being able to have this as a sustainable lifestyle where, you know, we're not letting the market dig us into these troughs, which it will if we're not careful. Do you have any thoughts about what that journey has been like for you, or how you safeguard against it, or if it still happens at times to you?
It definitely still happens at times to me. It has definitely gotten better in futures, but it still happens there. I mean, with options, I've done some really, really stupid things with trading and stuff that really hurt, which would really obviously ruin my day. There'd be days, you know, there'd be times I just shut it down. You know, I was still with my trading room, and I'll still be as professional as possible. You know, I think I keep my ups and downs pretty good in my trading. You know, I have a responsibility to them, so my P&L shouldn't affect how I speak to them. And I think if you would ask the majority of my room, I think I'm like that 99% of the time. There's certainly some times where you lose it, but it's very, very few. I get more upset at technology issues than my trading issues when my platform goes down or things like that. I try to, you're always going to battle it, right? Once you think you always have it, you're all set and everything's good, that's when you get smacked in the face. I think the best thing, and I try to tell everybody, is I try not to let a bad day ruin the next day. I generally come in, you know, I won't go home with a position in futures, haven't. And no matter how bad a day it was yesterday, I want to come in today and say, okay, I'm starting over. That's over. I can't do anything about that. I'm not happy about it. I want to learn from it, but I want to just start fresh today. Even, you know, if I lost $5,000, I don't care if I make 300 the next, the next day. You know what? I made $300. I got back into the green for that day, and you start going from that. Because if not, if you let things snowball, you can never trade without confidence. And I've had over many, on the trading floor and behind the screen, I've had my confidence rocked many times. Many times. It's going to happen. You can't trade without it. So you can't focus on a bad day because it will snowball. It will snowball. If you try to get it back the next day, if you have a really bad loss, you can't do that. You can't. That's why I tell people, you try not to put certain dollar figures on things, because we spoke about this last time. I want to make 300 a day. And you do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you lose 2,000 on Thursday. Well, first off, you just gave away everything, and now you're down for the week. So if you come into Friday saying, oh my goodness, I wanted to make $1,500, but I'm down 11, I got to make $2,600 today. You're dead before the market even opens.
Sure.
Make $300 on Friday, and then on Monday, start again, one day at a time.
When you're dealing with staying off of tilt and kind of, trying to stay in that zone period, is the most important thing awareness and being able to inevitably have to deal with situations that are stressful and that trigger you, but creating that distance between when you feel something and then you take the action, that level of awareness to kind of catch yourself. Is this the most important thing?
It is, because you can't apply a correction if you can't see it. So it's like kind of the first domino that has to fall, right? If you don't see it until after the fact, okay, well, then we got to use your sort of retrospective analysis to then create some understanding about how we're going to make progress in the future, because you have to make corrections in real time as the problem is occurring in order to be able to kind of transcend it. I'll give you a dramatic example. Early in my poker career, I had a guy, so a buy-in, right? Like if you sit into a cash game, like the buy-in is kind of what you're sitting down with. And generally that would be 100 times the big blind. So he would play 5-10, meaning he would sit down with $1,000. Now they're playing online. He wouldn't know that he was on tilt until he lost $10,000. Okay. So, I mean, that's costly lack of awareness, but over time we were able to kind of shrink that down. It wasn't no longer, how much he'd lost. It was no longer based on money. It was based on those internal markers that sometimes were able to give him some, like, in essence, like a probabilistic sense before his poker session started. That, you know what, didn't sleep great. Girlfriend and I had a little fight. Something else happened. And oh, by the way, I've lost 4 out of the last 5 sessions. So I'm coming in with a little accumulated emotion, a little weakened. I am more vulnerable. I am more, it's a higher probability that I'm going to tilt today. So I'm going to have a shorter leash. And I think sometimes traders leave themselves out to dry, right? They just willingly just like run off a cliff. Right? Not being aware of what's going on and saying, no, I said I was going to trade for 3 hours today. Damn it, I'm going to trade for 3 hours today. Or I'm a trader. I have to be here. I can't make money if I'm not here. Well, dude, you're paid based on your performance. And if you're compromised and you were playing in the NFL, you're playing in the NBA, like you're out of the game, like you're just yanked. So sometimes, like I said, it's hard to be that coach for yourself, but it's important to have that role internalized so you can yank yourself out. So yes, awareness is it. I mean, if you don't have awareness, you can't then take those next steps and you can't solve the problem long term.
Would you ever take a trade that's not in your playbook? Do you ever just see an opportunity that is something unique that you grab?
No. I've arbed that out because the performance on that's so poor. Any time that I'm like, oh, I kind of feel I need to be this or that, it does not end well.
Yeah. Seen that movie play out enough times to nip it in the bud.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know how, like your evolution from, like figuring this out to, consistent profitability and all that. But it's at some point, like the struggling trader has to figure out, like, I'm kind of tired of the pain, and it doesn't have to be this way. And I don't have to be, actionable on every price and at every time. And all I'm doing is burning psychological mental capital that I could be, put into other use. And
I want to take a quick break from the episode to talk to you about TradeAct. If you're on the trading journey and if you're really about this life, you know that it's not easy. And if you're feeling lost in your trading, maybe you're not getting the results that you want, maybe you're lost and you don't even know if you're doing the right things and if you're heading in the right direction. Don't worry, TradeAct's here to help. From our flagship product, the Profile Method, all the way to our entry-level product, the Profile Formula, there's going to be something for everybody, regardless of where you're at in the trading journey. TradeAct is my company that I help start. All of the content that I create, all of the trading that I do, it happens right inside of TradeAct. So if you're ready to take your trading to the next level, click the link below. You can get started today. Now let's get back to the episode.
And all they would have to do is spend some time with, guys. If the floors were open, like a lot of that stuff would be fixed, because it's in the vacuum of like the DIY in front of a screen that doesn't know that like there's a guy that would trade on Fridays in the pits, and everybody called him Gary, and everybody made like crazy bets about him, and he was just primed to lose all the time because that's the guy that's going to trade on Fridays, in the pits. Like everybody just knew you just didn't do that. That's why. But retail traders, like, no, man, rock on. It's it's 1 p.m. on a Friday. Let's go. And so
there's elements of what I talk about day to day, which should be ubiquitous. I mean, I was in a conference in 2008. It was I was in Boston, Harvard-led training, and when they said, the emotional system has the power to shut down higher brain functions, which means, right, cognitive behavioral therapy is like the number one, kind of recommended treatment by insurance companies for treatment of a wide variety of clinical disorders. Now, if you try to apply cognition, right, thinking at a time when your emotional system's overactive, you're basically feeding your client to the wolves, right? They're going to get run over. And so it was like this kind of aha moment across this, room full of therapists. It's like, how is it that you don't know that? I mean, it should be common knowledge. And I think to your point of basics of decision-making, basics of, understanding how our emotions function. I mean, so many traders, so many people struggle with, their emotions because they don't understand that simple law. And I tell my clients, certainly, just tattoo it to the inside of your brain. Because if you understand that when, right, you start to make bad decisions that you shouldn't, you're emotional. And if you recognize that you're emotional, you can act on it differently rather than getting kind of swept up in it. And that kind of basic awareness, I think, can be really impactful, because again, it takes it away from, oh, there's something wrong with me, that I'm fighting with myself like an animal to be in control. It's like, no, there's not something wrong with you. You just decided to take action way too late. The car had already gone off the cliff and you thought you could still drive it. It's like, no, dude, that choice has been made. You're gone, right? The choice should have been made, 700 yards before, and you could have stepped on the brakes. And that changes it away from being about you to being about, your knowledge of the situation. And that's a very, very different calculus.
Can you say that line one more time?
The emotional system has the power to shut down higher brain function, including emotional control. So your ability to control your emotions decreases the more intense your emotions get.
It's powerful. Can I ask you, you have a very obvious, like, high level of energy, and I would say a pretty positive outlook on life. When you think about, getting you to this place right now, it was your journey here that this was maybe something you feel like you were born with, of just like a positive outlook and everything, you tended to always be half glass full? Or have you gone through very dark times and you've learned to build this mindset into your life and this outlook? What's your perspective on that?
Thanks, man. Thanks for noticing. Thanks for making that compliment. I appreciate it, brother. Both. I've always been positive my entire life. Always. Ever since I can remember. Ridiculously positive. My sister calls it toxic positivity.
Good Lord.
Everything is always sunshine and rainbows, dude. There's no problem. It's like, it's all fine. And so I had to start addressing some issues at some point. And my issues were nothing compared to most people, really, truly, at the end of the day. But my whole 20s, from 20 to 30, sucked. It was awful. There were some highlights in there, but most of it was low. Most of it was painful. Most of it was black. Most of it was arduous. A lot of death, a lot of heartache, a lot of failure, a lot of loss, a lot of pain. And it was all self-inflicted because I believed, and one of my core beliefs was that life was about the pursuit of happiness. Until I learned one day I didn't want to pursue it. I just wanted to have it. Once I made that shift, everything started changing for me. And there was other shifts that made massive mind alterations for me as well. One of them being everything that happened negative happened for me, not to me. That was a beautiful, amazing paradigm change. And everything was a gift. I just looked at it as how could this change? And I used that natural positivity to just keep shaking it. So I wasn't, Tony Robbins will say, it's not that you walk around going, there are no weeds, there are no weeds, there are no weeds. Because that's what I was doing. I was like, there's no weeds in the garden. All the roses are beautiful. Everything is great. There were weeds, dude. And I had to go, here's the weeds. Here's what they are. Let me pull them out. And then just like, when you pull out weeds, some of them still grow back, but not the same ones, just different ones in a different place, maybe a different size. So you pull the weeds once, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. So I just I changed the toxic positivity model to staying still toxically positive, but going, there are weeds. I do have problems. Here's what they are, and let me fix them.
Yeah, that's good. You can see it in people. There's this difference of, like you said, going through life pretending it's not there, to where somebody is happy, but you can almost tell they're either bearing something or coping with something, and it's not like this genuine in you. And you can tell when somebody has something genuinely in them. And that's why I wanted to ask you where that came from, because they could see it's something that's genuinely in you, and it comes out. It's very refreshing to be around.
Thanks, bro.
Something you talk about actually in the book, since we're on topic, is not confusing simplicity for being ineffective.
Yeah.
And could you I'm going to leave this, I'm going to kind of explain this in a roundabout way. It's going to be like an open topic, but if you could just give your thoughts on it, because I think that there's a dynamic in trading that is very prevalent, where a lot of people are trying to keep it simple, but their simplicity is not effective. They are following something that does not give them an edge. There's no contextual placement there. It's almost not sophisticated enough to get the job done. And then there's people on the other side that are confusing the idea of more being better, and they are watching so many different things that they're making the process so much more difficult than it has to be. Can you talk about finding that balance and what that means to you, as far as keeping it simple, but understanding that we are in this competitive, sophisticated space? So you are going to have, there is going to have to be some moving parts to what you're looking at.
Yeah, and I think I put that quote in the book, is that, the simplicity is the market's greatest disguise. The market is simple, but it's not easy. It's like, people often say it's like losing weight. Well, all you have to do is exercise more and eat less. Sounds easy, right? Well, but that beer tastes so good, and that whatever, I'm going to this dinner, I've got to make an exception for that. But at the end of the day, Korbs, what I always say, and I still say it to myself, is only price pays. That I can analyze a balance sheet, I can interview the CEO, and I will just believe that because I want to believe it now. I'm so invested in that opinion. Instead, it's all in the market. That's good information, especially if you're an investor and you need to justify why you're going to hold this for 2-3 years or whatever it is. You've got to believe in it. But for my time frame, I have the luxury of saying, what, the price doesn't agree, so I'm out. And it's about, on my time frames, swing trading, it's truly about supply and demand for the stock. What influences that supply and demand? Warren Buffett, one of his quotes is, in the near term, it's a voting machine, and in the long term, it's a weighing machine. So we have the elections coming up, and people get all emotional and they bet on that. But now, how did that candidate do? We have to weigh those 4 years that person was president, this 2 years. That's where we really start to understand. I'm all about tallying up the votes in real time and saying, here's who has control now. Wait a minute, looks like the Republicans are winning. Nope, now the Democrats got it back. Well, it's too messy in there. I'm not going to make the call. But once we start to see it surge in one direction, I'm going to latch onto that trend and be involved in that, as long as the data tells me the buyers are still in control. And as long as it's on that shorter term time frame, making those higher highs and higher lows, then I want to stick with it. So that's the simplicity for me. It can be different things for other people as well. One of the biggest things I talk about on Twitter, and has helped a lot of people, is if the stock or the market is below a declining 5-day moving average, just don't buy. Just wait. And, you know, as the semiconductors just dropped 12%, and there was no reason to buy the dip down 3%, 4, 5, 6, 8%, 12%. Now they're coming out of that. So just listen to the message of the market as objectively as you can.
Yeah. That simplicity of objectively listening to real-time market generated information. And it's one skill set to be able to get good at learning something or knowing a tool or knowing something. And it's almost a completely different skill set to be able to understand what is that thing I need to master? What is that thing I need to listen to? And of course, there's no shortage of people online who are going to tell you, give you that, try to tell you that information of what you should be focusing on.
Right.
But on
yeah.
everybody's journey, that's something you've got to figure out and get clear about is, what does that simplicity look like to me? And thank you for explaining what it means to you.
Yeah, and it comes with, it's frustrating so how do I get there? And it really, unfortunately, comes from making all the mistakes yourself. You can read about the mistakes, but the only ones for me that I ever really learn are the ones I experience. And just muscle memory, doing the same things over and over again, and getting rid of the bad habits of trying to buy a stock while it's down and getting this perceived discount. It took me a long time to get over that, and some of my biggest losses came out of trying to buy dips and pullbacks. So I'm a reformed dip buyer, and it's been a long time since I've put that ugly hat on, and I've beaten that demon.
You mentioned meditation, and this is probably the sticking point for so many people of they just can't move forward in their trading because they have these impulses, they feel these things, and they immediately act on them, and then everything is just done. Nothing matters anymore. My solution to this, because I recognize this is the problem as well, is that this is where meditation becomes very powerful, because the practice of meditation, of just kind of letting your mind wander, realizing it's wandered, and then bringing it back.
Yeah.
That
to just focus on breath, just
catching
basic.
your thoughts. Yeah, exactly. And then that translates, it's almost like wax on, wax off, where it feels like you're doing nothing. But then when somebody throws a fist at you, or when something happens, you can actually create that space that you talked about, to where I felt this, instead of going straight to acting, I'm able to catch that.
You observe it. Yes.
Yeah. Besides meditation, any other tip, or is that kind of the solution? Just you got to be meditative?
Well, I think that more people in 2023 need to find ways of doing things that are meditative. Okay.
Okay.
Everyone is scrolling, short attention span, entertain me, blah, 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 blah. Right. And they don't. That's why I talked about my morning routine. And one of the first things I mentioned was connecting with myself in that way. People don't find the time to be still, to be quiet. And, there's a lot of different things that could be. I really think that, again, some sport, like, for example, cycling, or different things where it's not requiring a ton of thought. It might be a little physical, but you can kind of drone about it and do it. Going for a run, all these things are very meditative. And doing those things, I believe, also to a lesser degree than like focused meditation, where you're recentering the thought back on your breath and whatnot. They can be very helpful as well. And for people that you were describing, I would also, because a lot of things just don't show up in trading in an isolated way. If someone is unable to control themselves in the trading world, I would also look to other areas of life and see what you can draw on, not only from a negative place, but from a positive place. What area of life do you face adversity and you're able to do the right thing? What did you draw upon from maybe some of your core, like, character traits or different morals or standards or whatever? Like, what do you draw upon, right, to when you were successful in that regard? And try to channel some of those things. I learned this from Dr. Steenbarger, right? Just everything. A lot of guys in trading, they just want to focus on the trading and maybe their psychology with the trading. But really, in the broader scope of your life, you can bring things into that, and it can be very, very helpful.
Yeah. Age-old problem of looking outside is a really beautiful quote. You don't have a business problem. You have a personal problem that's showing up in your business. And to make it really personal for us, we don't have trading problems. We have personal problems that are showing up in our trading.
Sure.
And there's no reality where you have these undisciplined, disheveled parts of your lifestyle, and then somehow they just go away when you sit down on the screens and there's all these extra elements. And I think this is one of the beautiful things about this trading journey is it forces you, there's no way past this. It forces you to just be a better person, like to be more in control of yourself and to have more awareness, and to be a better performer. You know, these are things that there's
A
no
lot of humility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, the journey of trading.
That just comes back to hardwiring in our brains. Like nobody wants to be wrong. You never, it irks you if you're wrong, or if something doesn't meet your expectations, right? And that goes for whatever point in life. So yeah, you want to view it from that perspective, and also kind of think of it from the perspective of, if you can just cut one loss a week, add up how much that is at the end of the year. Whatever your normal giveaway is, right? So like if even somebody's trading only, let's say for $50 a tick or whatever, $50 a trade, right? And you either make it or lose it. Small account, whatever. But there's trades throughout the week where you just know that you shouldn't be in the trade, and you're giving away $50 for no reason, right? That's like $200 a month. That's $2,400 a year on a very small account, trading a very small size. That's a lot, That's a month of rent, or that's a vacation, or whatever. And so as you scale that, those numbers grow substantially. So if you start trading for $200 or $300, $400 a tick, and you just cut one loss a week, I mean, you literally could be saving yourself $1,000 a week or more just by exercising a little more discipline. Yeah, you're going to push some trades here and there, but just that one time where you should not be taking the trade, it doesn't seem like much because on that day it's only $200. But at the end of the year, at the end of the year, it costs you $5,000. So
Especially deceptive if you're up $400 on the day.
Yep.
But that $200 is still still
Exactly.
happens. All the things that you do in the morning, let's say, make the bed, get hydrated, do your meditation, the other things that you do for the morning. If you had to think about it, and maybe you could only do one, you for some reason you had to start the day and you could only do one thing. You could only make the bed, you could only do a meditation, you could, what do you think would be like the one thing that no matter what, you would have to do that, or your day is going to be messed up?
Pray. I'd have to pray.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I have to be in touch with something greater than me.
Yeah. Yeah. You've mentioned that you're a man of faith, and I'm assuming Catholic, based on what you said with the rosary. Maybe even a good place to as a final kind of topic almost, because I would just be curious, when you think of Jesus, who is Jesus to you?
Wow, what a question that is.
And I know that was kind of out of left field, and I've had a very similar, I've had some realizations recently that I've just been mulling over, and they've been very fresh in my mind. And you're one of the first people I've talked to who's just mentioned their faith. And so I just was curious.
So, for a long time, being Catholic, people think that we pray to the saints, or we pray to Mary. We don't. We ask Mary to pray for us. Hail Mary, full of grace, pray for us now and at the hour of our death. Amen. So I'm not praying to Mary, but it was easier for me to relate to Mary because I was closer with my mother than I was my father. I felt my mother's unconditional love. My father, I had to earn it. So, my relationship with God has always been one of not good enough, earning. I have more to do, and then as I've matured, after I was broke and kind of stripped bare of everything, Korbs, I made millions of dollars. I mean, a ton of money. And when I literally had nothing, I literally had nothing. And so it was, okay, who am I? The existential question, who am I and where am I going? What's important to me? And I never lost that flicker of faith. So, I just realized that I'm okay. I'm all right. My kids have a roof over their head. My wife still loves me and she's with me. I don't know why, but she does. Maybe I am worthy of love because they love me. I don't see it. I don't understand why. I remember listening to that song, Johnny Cash's song, Hurt.
over and over and over again one night. You know, all I'm leaving behind, I'm paraphrasing the song, but all I'm leaving behind is this big pile of shit that I'm leaving for the people that love me. You know, so if I like Job, you know, and I read a lot of Job, my trading badge is Pax, which means peace in Latin. During 08 and 09, when everybody was dying, and then I came back on the floor, this Jewish guy came over to me and said, maybe you should change your badge from Pax to Job. And so I thought, well, maybe I ought to read Job.
Wow.
So as I kind of did, I realized that Job was happy after he lost everything in life, and he lost, including all of his loved ones that died, and he lost everything. But he was sitting, and Scripture says he was sitting on his pile of dung, and that's when he realized that God loved him. So somewhere along the line, I realized at that point, that God loved me. I just had to learn how to allow him to love me. Well, then I start, reading the Bible a lot more. I don't want to sound, too, religious, but I started to read the Bible a lot more, and I realized that Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, is that conduit. The God, the love of God, the love of the Son, the love of God the Father and the Son produced the love of the Holy Spirit, which is the love between all of us. That mystery, the mystery of faith, I guess. So the way that I see God the Father is this all-knowing, all-omniscient, as Jesus is too, being or entity that exists, that creates everything, and Jesus as my Savior, the sacrificial lamb, my friend, somebody who walks through life with me, that has already died so I don't have to, that has already suffered so I don't have to. That gives me faith in all things and gives me the awareness and the knowledge that no matter what is going on, and no matter what life will bring storms, no matter what kind of storm I'm facing, I'm loved, I'm safe, and I'm okay. And so is everybody I love and everybody around me.